This evening we have a special report on the death of Mr. Socrates, a well-known agitator put on trial and convicted for his subversive activities. Here with me in the studio is Mr. Crito, who has come forward with astounding information on events preceding the execution. Good evening, Mr. Crito.
Good evening. First, I would like to point out that all of us who knew him believe that his trial, while legal, was completely unjust and the death penalty completely out of line.
But what matters is that the law was followed. Your friend had the opportunity to defend himself and managed only to say things that turned the jury against him. We all remember how in the penalty phase of his trial Mr. Socrates proposed that he should be treated like a victor at the Olympic Games for the benefits he brought this city. That only suggested that he meant to insult the jury that had convicted him. It is no surprise, then, that more voted for his death than had voted for his guilt.
That may be, but he showed his respect for the law itself by refusing a chance to escape before his execution.
There have been rumors to the effect that wealthy friends attempted to bribe the guards. Can you comment on this?
I do not wish to go into details for obvious reasons, but, no, there was no such attempt made. The proposition had been brought to Mr. Socrates, but he refused to go along with it.
In other words, there was a plot, but Mr. Socrates himself did not allow it to go forward. I find that rather remarkable. What man would choose death over life if he had it in his power to avoid it?
A man who proved his love for the city of Athens even as its citizens turned against him. Even when asked to think about his wife and children, he made a case that violating the law now would make a mockery of all he had ever tried to teach. He said that would bring more shame to himself and his family in exile than would the execution itself.
That is most interesting. But how did he explain the authority of the state to command something that so obviously would go against every human instinct for self-survival?
I need to say two things here. First, Mr. Socrates, with his belief in immortality and reincarnation, always insisted that the care of the soul outweighed care of the body. What follows is that he believed he must do what was right regardless of the cost. The second point is that he believed that by remaining in the city as an adult able to move elsewhere he had entered into a contract to obey its laws. In a world such as Greece at present we are free to live wherever we want. Mr. Socrates did not consider Athens to be perfect, but he clearly preferred our system of government to what could be seen elsewhere.
How interesting. This idea of a social contract is something which our foreign correspondents have reported as appearing elsewhere in the world.
You are surely referring to gentlemen in England and France who are attempting to explain why rational human beings would allow themselves to be told what to do by other human beings in positions of authority. However, this assumes that the state, rather than being a natural extension of the family, is something artificial. They say, then, people make a deal with each other and the state derives its authority from the terms of the deal.
And Mr. Socrates would not agree?
Not at all. Just as he refuses to see justice as only another word for power, as in the saying that might makes right, Mr. Socrates saw it natural for children to obey their parents and then, as adults, to obey the laws of the city in which they choose to remain. Obviously, no one thinks we actually sit down to do this. We are talking about virtual agreements in the sense that by accepting certain benefits we agree to the terms near which they are provided.
Even to the point of accepting execution when he believed himself innocent of the crimes with which he was charged. That is by no means a common-sense approach.
No, I agree. However, we know that the priestess at Delphi pronounced Mr. Socrates the wisest of the Greeks. You and I are not gifted with such wisdom, so what follows is that in an ideal state only the wise would rule.
As we all know, Mr. Socrates was an enemy of democracy, regardless of what you say otherwise. From what you say, he would favor a dictatorship of philosopher kings.
True enough, but what matters is that he lived and died by his principles in the world we actually know. That is his legacy.
Mr. Crito, our time is up, but thank you for coming here to share your reflections. You have given us much to think about.